Okay, if everybody would find their seat, we'll kick off this morning's session. Okay, everybody, we got a lot to get through this morning, so if you'll find your seat, let's get started. Don't make me call names, Karen. Kirk. Okay, I'm going to call us to order, and I'm going to look to our secretary for a couple of announcements.
Good morning. If you do not yet have your voting credentials, please stop by the registration area between 9 a.m. and noon, and volunteers will provide them to you. The arena internet is now working.
Yay!
Woohoo! The network name is VAUMC 2025, VAUMC 2025, and the password is VAUMC 2025 exclamation point. VAUMC 2025 exclamation point. All caps. And the network bandwidth is limited per user to more reliably support the voting later today. So as a reminder, you do not have to use Wi-Fi to vote. You can use your device self-service if that works for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Reverend Dr. David McAllister Wilson, who is the Dean of Wesley Theological Seminary, an institution we're very proud of, and I'm delighted to serve as part of its board. And many of you, if you're on the board of Wesley, would you stand? We have several. I don't see them. They're not here. But Reverend McAllister Wilson is, and I'm delighted to have him come give our prayer this morning.
Thank you, Bishop. Good morning, conference. 40 years ago, I began the process of ordination in the Virginia Conference. We took pride then in being the largest conference with a history almost as old as the Blue Ridge. We had full churches on Easter, guaranteed appointment, a strong connectional system, and ample financial reserves. We lived in a church-friendly culture. The blue laws were still in effect in Old Dominion. There was no soccer on Sunday morning and no social media. Certainly no Wi-Fi. If you think about it, it was all a kind of a security blanket. It was a safety net, which we all took for granted. Though it was already starting to fray, to unravel, more and more ever since. I've spent 40 years at Wesley thinking about how to revitalize the church, and I confess I've been paying too much attention in that time to how things used to be. So I want to pray my way out of that mindset and invite you to join me back to the future of Virginia Methodism, which will be driven by the movement of the Holy Spirit as it was in the beginning on the day of Pentecost. As I pray, may I ask that you hold each other's hands, kind of weaving ourselves together in the eyes of God as we pray. Let us pray. God of grace, we come to you aware we are now working without a net, except the one we form with the blessed tie that binds us hand to hand, heart to heart in this conference. Help us fly through the air with the greatest of ease, relying on the lift of the Holy Spirit, grace beneath our wings. Let us not dwell on the former things. Once our silos were full, now we have only 5 loaves and 2 fishes. But these are the ingredients of miracles, something you can work with. Let us see through the eyes of Christ and hear his voice as we vote and deliberate today. To see that what seemed like decline and separation has really been preparation, your work of prevenient grace. We come to you as United Methodists, spirituality with an attitude and an agenda. Remind us we are to be the salt of the earth, not the sugar. Bless and sanctify our conferencing with your guidance. Turn our faces towards Jerusalem, our mission in our communities and the world. Open our eyes to the fact we're going to need a bigger table. Trusting there is growth and grace and power to resist the evils we deplore. God of grace and God of glory, on thy people pour thy power. Grant us wisdom, grant us courage for the facing of this hour. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. It's now my pleasure to introduce one of the hardest working people on the face of the planet, Mr. John Fuller, who is our Executive Director of Pensions and Benefits, and he's going to offer the pensions report. John?
Good morning, Virginia Conference. Bishop Halpert Johnson, Lay Leader Stokes, members and guests of the Virginia Annual Conference. As the Director of Virginia United Methodist Pensions, it is my pleasure to present our report and recommendations. Virginia United Methodist Pensions, which is commonly referred to by the acronym VUMPI, is the Virginia Conference agency that administers our conference-sponsored health plans for active and retired clergy, along with our denominational pension and welfare plans. At each year's annual conference, VUMPI presents several reports and recommendations for annual conference consideration. VUMPI's reports begin on page 101 of your book of reports. These reports are intended to be informational and provide details about the various benefit programs that we administer. I would like to note VUMPI's report number 2 in particular, which describes the work of a clergy benefits task force that was formed in 2024 to consider various aspects of the benefit programs made available to Virginia Conference clergy. That task force, which included leadership representing a variety of perspectives across the Virginia Conference, concluded its work at the end of 2024 with the release of several recommendations. Those recommendations were then considered by the VUMPI Board of Directors, and several of those are included among the recommendations that are now being presented by VUMPI for annual conference consideration. One of the task force's recommendations has already been adopted with the elimination of the active clergy health plan apportionment in 2026 and the implementation of a new health plan direct bill structure. Beginning in 2026, VUMPI will bill the salary-paying unit $1,660 monthly for each health plan eligible clergy person. This approach to funding the conference-sponsored health plan matches the billing methodology that is used in almost every other annual conference. The task force's recommendation to adopt the new health plan direct bill structure is based on the belief that it results in a more equitable and transparent methodology in funding the conference health plans. Further, analysis indicates that a majority of Virginia Conference churches will see a reduction in costs associated with funding the conference-sponsored health plans as a result of this change. Also, during last year's annual conference, a question was received from the floor about the possibility of extending conference health plan eligibility to clergy who are serving in 75% appointments. That inquiry was referred to the Clergy Benefits Task Force for review. Following a detailed evaluation of the potential change in eligibility guidelines, including both financial and non-financial factors, the task force elected not to recommend any changes in the eligibility guidelines for the conference-sponsored health plans. I would like to thank Reverend Jesse Colwell, the Director in the Center for Clergy Excellence, and David Domesey, the conference's CFO and Treasurer, for co-leading the task force with me last year. I would also like to express my gratitude to all who served on the task force. This year, VUMPI has 9 recommendations for conference consideration. These recommendations begin on page 106 in your book of reports. All of VUMPI's recommendations pertain to internal conference-controlled policy, and if approved, will be implemented effective January 1 of 2026. Our first recommendation, which came from the Clergy Benefits Task Force, involves the adoption of the VIA benefits program for Medicare-eligible clergy beginning in 2026. The VIA benefits program will offer retired Medicare-eligible clergy the opportunity to enroll in a range of Medicare supplemental health plans, along with ancillary health plans like dental, vision, and hearing. The Virginia Conference will contribute funding to a health reimbursement account for each retiree based on years of full-time ministry in the Virginia Conference, and those funds can be used to offset the premiums for the selected health plans. The primary factors supporting the recommendation of the adoption of the VIA benefits program are the limited plan choices in the current program, specifically the lack of access to ancillary plans like dental insurance, along with the potential for significant volatility in plan pricing in the current program. In 2025, plan premiums for the conference-sponsored Group Medicare Advantage plan increased by 28.5%, primarily driven by changes resulting from legislation. As this level of cost increase could not be fully passed along to our conference's churches and plan participants, VUMPI is absorbing nearly $1 million in higher costs due to that unexpected increase. WestPath, our denomination's general agency that administers pension plans for United Methodist clergy, has partnered with VIA Benefits to make the program available to each annual conference. Currently, there are 28 other annual conferences that have already adopted the VIA Benefits plan. More are electing to join the program each year. The VIA Benefits program will be offered as an option to current retirees, but transitioning to VIA Benefits will not be mandatory. Health plan coverage through VIA Benefits will be the only program offered to clergy who retire in or after 2026. For 2026, as is detailed on page 108 in your book of reports, VUMPI is recommending conference health reimbursement account contributions that are intended to match the value of the current program prior to this year's significant cost increase. Specifically, the monthly subsidy amounts are recommended as follows. For clergy with 30 or more years of full-time conference ministry, the monthly subsidy will be $250. For those with 25 to 29 years, the monthly subsidy will be $200. For those with 20 to 24 years, the monthly subsidy will be $150, and those with 15 to 19 years, the monthly subsidy amount will be $100. Clergy with fewer than 15 years of conference ministry will still have the ability to evaluate and enroll in health plans through VIA Benefits, but will not be eligible for a subsidy. Also, as is the case in the current retiree medical program, eligible spouses of retired clergy who enroll in coverage through VIA Benefits will receive the same monthly subsidy amount as the retiree. VUMPI will share additional details with Virginia Conference retired clergy via videos and webinars near the end of 2025 in order to assist retired clergy with evaluating plan options for 2026. VUMPI's second recommendation, also coming from the Clergy Benefits Task Force, addresses benefits eligibility for retired clergy who elect to withdraw from the UMC. The recommendation is to terminate eligibility for the conference-sponsored retiree health plan and the conference supplemental life insurance benefit for any retired clergy who withdraw from the UMC in or after 2026. This recommendation is based on the identification of administrative issues that could inadvertently create significant financial liabilities for VUMPI, and it is not intended to be punitive. This recommendation would also not be retroactive and would not impact benefits eligibility for any retired clergy who have already withdrawn or those who withdraw prior to the end of 2025. I would like to note that the task force intentionally recommended that the remainder of 2025 be available for any clergy considering withdrawal to do so without losing eligibility for these benefits. VUMPI's third recommendation involves the PPO 500 health plan that is currently only made available to clergy receiving CPP disability benefits and surviving spouses and children of clergy. The recommendation is to close this health plan to new enrollment in 2026, while allowing any health plan members enrolled in the plan at the end of 2025 to remain enrolled in the plan. Clergy newly awarded CPP disability benefits in 2026 and thereafter, along with newly eligible surviving spouses and children of clergy, will be able to remain enrolled in the conference-sponsored health plans for active clergy at active clergy rates. The motivation for this change is the observation that the plan design structure of the PPO 500 health plan can inadvertently create new financial liabilities for newly enrolled members, as the plan has separate deductibles for medical and prescription drug coverage. Transitioning members from the active clergy health plans to the PPO 500 plan can also result in member disruption resulting from the administrative processes involved in mid-year plan transitions. So this recommendation is intended to improve the member experience in both financial and administrative ways. VUMPI's fourth recommendation pertains to the 2026 participant contributions for the conference-sponsored health plans. For 2026, VUMPI is recommending an increase of about 5% across all health plans, across all enrollment tiers, for all plans made available to active and retired clergy. Specific recommended participant contributions are detailed on page 107 and 108 in your book of reports. This recommendation is based on ongoing increases in overall health plan costs and is intended to maintain consistency in the participants' costs as a percent of total plan costs. VUMPI's fifth recommendation involves the past service rate that is used to calculate pension benefits under the pre-82 pension program. Currently, the past service rate is $626. In order to recognize increases in the general cost of living, VUMPI is recommending that the past service rate be increased to $659 in 2026. This reflects an increase of approximately 5.3%. The sixth recommendation pertains to the billing methodology that is recommended in order to pay the premiums for the Denominational Comprehensive Protection Plan, or CPP, and the conference's supplemental life insurance program. Currently, VUMPI bills 4.4% of clergy total plan compensation for those programs, and this recommendation is to continue billing 4.4% of total plan compensation for the CPP and supplemental life insurance programs. The new Compass Retirement Savings Program includes features such as automatic enrollment and automatic escalation. These features are intended to help our denomination's clergy prepare adequately for retirement. VUMPI's seventh recommendation is for automatic enrollment in Compass at 4% of total plan compensation, increasing by 1 percentage point per year to a maximum automatic escalation at 10% of total plan compensation. The automatic escalation will be implemented in January of each year. VUMPI's eighth recommendation pertains to the methodology that VUMPI will use to bill churches and other salary-paying units for Compass contributions. Consistent with WestPath's recommendations, VUMPI is recommending a billing methodology referred to as precise billing with full match. This will result in VUMPI billing the church for the precise participant contribution elected by the Compass plan participant, along with the full matching 4% that is included in the Compass plan design. And finally, VUMPI's ninth recommendation is a resolution addressing the clergy housing tax exclusion for the 2026 tax year, which is allowed under IRS Code Section 107. In order for our clergy to be eligible to take advantage of this tax exclusion, a resolution must be approved each year at annual conference. Upon conference approval, VUMPI will make the resolution available to our clergy on the VUMPI website for income tax filing purposes. Bishop Halpert Johnson, before I officially conclude my report, I would like to express my gratitude to the VUMPI Board of Directors and to my VUMPI staff colleagues for all that they do throughout the year to maintain these important benefit plans for our conference's clergy. This concludes my report. I now present VUMPI's recommendations 1 through 9 for annual conference approval.
Great. The recommendations of the committee are before you. Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, if you would approve this report. Oh, there's one up there, way up there. Microphone 9.
Morning, Bishop. Thomas James, elder serving in Extension Ministry in the Northern Virginia District. I'm an adult male, uses he, him pronouns. John indicated that the direct bill system is one that has been already approved by CFNA and is built into the conference treasurer's plan, but I was hoping for just 2 questions of clarification around the implementation of that plan.
Go ahead.
The treasurer's report on page 174 indicates that there will be a cost savings of about $1.35 million through the implementation of this plan. But in your report, you just indicated that the cost of health care is actually going up, and some of those expenses are being passed on to clergy in our withholdings. Is there an actual, can you just clarify, is there an actual savings? Are we paying less money in health care with this direct bill shift than we would otherwise?
So that's a great question. I would say in the aggregate, the impact of moving from a health plan apportionment to a health plan direct bill structure, that change itself will not reduce aggregate health plan costs. What we are essentially doing is taking a fixed cost and changing the form by which we allocate that to the various entities that will pay that cost. So there is not a direct savings resulting from that change itself. I think, and I will not presume to speak for what is in the treasurer's report. I'll leave it to the treasurer to address that. However, I believe that what is being reported could be an indication of the expected increase in the rate of payment of a direct billed structure as it compares to an apportioned structure. As I think most are aware, apportionments typically are not paid at 100%, and so there is a shortfall in apportionment payments. Because of the transition to a direct bill structure, one might presume that we will be closer to 100% in that billing. And because of that improvement in the rate of payment, there could be an offset in other costs or perhaps a redirection of VUMPI reserves that otherwise would have had to cover that shortfall in the apportionment payment. So to answer the question as simply as I can, the change from an apportionment to a direct bill structure will not lead to a reduction in aggregate health plan costs in our health plan.
My second question is regarding the retired clergy health. Again, on page 174 in the conference treasurer's report, it indicates that the actual cost of retired clergy health is going from $5.4 million up to $7 million, which indicates a 30% increase in costs for retired clergy health. I know with the recommendation of VIA benefits that there will be some changes, but is a 30% increase in retired clergy costs what VUMPI is actually expecting for 2026?
Yes, in fact, as I just reported in my report, the conference premium for our conference-sponsored Medicare Advantage plan increased by 28.5%, which would round to 30%. So I think that is simply a reflection of the increase in costs that we saw this year, which we expect to carry through to next year as well. So there is an increase in costs. Again, you're referencing something that is not in a VUMPI report, so I would need to defer to others for the specifics on what's in that report. But I would say an increase that would round to 30% is a legitimate increase, and I would not be surprised that would be something that would be reported.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Okay, other questions, discussion on this report? I'm looking up high. Here's one, microphone 3.
Oh, sorry, I had to check and see what microphone I was at. Reverend Tim Barth, St. Luke's United Methodist Church, Disability Commission, and also a disabled person. One of my questions that I keep coming back to is there's a huge cost to things like hearing aids and medical accessible equipment. I'm thankful that my church helped me buy hearing aids this last time at the cost of $5,000. Our insurance does not cover anything toward those prices, and I understand that because, it's expensive. So I was wondering if the task force had had a chance in any way, shape, or form to evaluate what it would look like to offer medical assistant funds for those kinds of devices.
Sure, that's a great question, and thank you for that input. What VUMPI can do, we have a supplemental benefits committee that evaluates the specifics of the conference-sponsored health plans throughout the year. And so I will take your comment and I'll take that back to the committee, and we will work with our external consultants to evaluate the potential to add coverage for those types of products and services, and to see what the potential impact on the aggregate cost in our health plan could be. And so thank you for that again, and I will take that and we'll take that up with the committee and the VUMPI Board of Directors.
Thank you, and please know I appreciate all that you and you do for the conference.
Thank you.
Jonathan.
Microphone 1. Is that 1 or is it? No, it's 4. It looks like a 1 to me, but I think it's a 4.
Thank you, Bishop. I'm Sarah Harrison McQueen. I serve on the Northern Virginia District, serving at Central, and I'm clergy. I use she, her pronouns. I just need to understand a little better the distinction between the apportionment and direct billing. For clergy who are not on the conference healthcare plan, will their churches get a direct bill or not?
Yes, so it will be billed to every church for each health plan eligible clergy. There will not be a distinction made based on whether that clergy enrolls in the health plan or not. So hopefully that's clear. If an explanation is needed as to why, I can do that. But
No, thank you. I just
okay.
wanted to understand if it would or not.
Okay, yes.
Okay, others? Seeing none, I always say that because then I listen for the groan or the shout, but I think I've seen them all. I think we're ready to move into a vote to approve the Board of Pensions report and recommendation. If you would so approve, lift a hand. Thank you. Those opposed, same sign. Thank you, John Fuller. You are a gift to the annual conference. Now I'd like to introduce Reverend Tom Durrance, the chairperson of the Equitable Compensation Committee.
Bishop Hopper Johnson, Lay Leader Stokes, members of the annual conference, you can find the Equitable Compensation Commission report on page 97 of the Book of Reports. In 2024, the Equitable Compensation Commission continued to provide financial aid to those churches requiring supplementation to strengthen their ministries in the communities in which they are located, and to provide minimum salary or salary supplement for the pastors. Beginning on January 1st, 2025, the Equitable Compensation, in partnership with the Cabinet and the Church Development Team, CDT, determined that salary funding and other support-related strategic appointments would come from CDT grant and be overseen by the Cabinet. With that mission change for us in mind, the equitable compensation still continues to focus on two primary areas. Number one, recommending the minimum compensation schedule for full-time clergy each year. And two, providing salary support for full-time clergy who are experiencing a compensation arrearage. Can we show our slide? This year, the Equitable Compensation Commission added two new categories to our recommendation for minimum salaries. We have included two new levels, differentiation for licensed local pastors based on their education. And we've added a new category, associate members, placed above provisional members due to their lifetime status. These changes came from recommendations from the Just Compensation Task Force, which I participated in the last 2 years. The Commission, in consultation with the Cabinet, recommends an increase of 3% for the 2026 minimum compensation schedule as shown on the screen. There we are. Bishop Hopper Johnson, I move that the recommended minimum compensation schedule be approved as presented.
Okay, thank you. I see a card, microphone 5.
Thank you, Bishop. Andrew Labar, Dietz, Deacon and Full Connection, Mountain View District, he, him pronouns. I have 2 questions. My first question is, do we have an idea on where Virginia Conference will rank compared to other United States annual conferences on minimum salary?
All right, we'll get an answer for that. We'll speak to that in the next report.
Okay.
If you wait for the just compensation.
Okay.
All right?
My second question is, do we know how many churches will be able to afford 2 clergy people at the minimum or better salary? For instance, a senior pastor and an associate, or an elder and a deacon?
I don't have those statistics.
Okay.
You can query Chris Malik is the keeper of the database, and he could answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Okay, microphone, I can't see what it is, but go ahead, Reverend Eisenhagen.
Brett Eisenhagen, clergy, and Shenandoah River District, at least for the next 48 hours. I'd like to speak against the motion. Not that I think the work was done in bad faith, and not that I think it's not needed or deserved, but I'm troubled every year as we raise the minimum that we are pricing churches out of full-time and elder ministry, and in doing so, we're limiting the amount of truly missional appointments that can be made, as there are churches that might be able to use ministry of elders and full-time folks and simply can't afford it. And just following the logical trajectory of that, it's not an encouraging picture. If it's not part of a more nuanced solution, I think asking churches to just keep raising salary with money they don't have, that can't be it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we've had a speech against, microphone 3.
Joshua King, Cave Spring United Methodist Church, Valley Ridge District. I just had a question about the local pastors completing course of study. Does that also include local pastors who have completed their MDiv?
That's the intention.
Okay.
So if you're a local pastor who has an MDiv, you're not required to go to course of study. And
Okay.
so we're just saying it's an incentive to get the course of study or education done. That was the intent behind the
Thank you.
the
I just
move.
wanted to be sure. I wanted to be clear that that also included those with MDiv.
Fair enough.
Thank
Good.
you.
Excellent.
Okay, microphone 5.
Kathleen Monge, retired clergy, serving in the Mission River District at Charles City Memorial United Methodist Church. My question concerning the equitable salary, and I haven't found it in the report, but it may be there. So the question is there a place or is there an amount that a church must come up with to qualify for assistance? If a church was looking at, we really would like a provisional, and the proposed salary is $44,000, what would a church have to come up to qualify for assistance?
I could answer that. That's no longer under equitable compensation. That will be dealt with the grant from the CDT to the cabinet, and the cabinet will make those determinations as they see fit on how to spread that grant out to churches that have needs.
Okay, so that is coming from a grant as opposed from?
From equitable compensation, yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
So we no longer have to calculate bases. That's all done through the cabinet.
Thank you.
Microphone 2.
Good morning, Bishop. My name is Lisa Norden, clergy. I am on loan to the Mountain Sky Conference right now and serve the Church of Ray United Methodist Church. I speak for this amendment, this change, as a single parent who has been a clergy person for a little while now. The pay that we have been receiving against the lack thereof with our housing allowance has caused me many times, more than I would care to count, to have to go to food closets, to wonder if I'm going to be able to feed my kids and pay my bills, and don't forget medication. I understand the hardship of the churches as a person who also gets to enjoy the budget time, but your clergy need to be able to work in a way that doesn't cause us to worry if we're going to pay the bills and feed our kids, against, working and serving the community we're sent to. So I speak for this and trust that God will somehow balance it all out. And maybe that's foolish, but I also speak for those who just don't have enough money to make ends meet.
Thank you. Microphone, let's hold our applause. Microphone 4.
Bishop Brian Buckles, Mountain View District Clergy, he, him. I've lost count, forgive me. Do we already have 2 in favor?
No.
Okay. Bishop, I rise to speak in favor of the proposal.
Okay.
Bishop, I echo the comments just made by my esteemed colleague. I can't count the number of colleagues I have that graduate from seminary in their 20s and are middle-aged and still paying off loans. I too have served wonderful churches for well over 20 years now. I love them and they have loved me, and I understand the hardships. I would respectfully request that we discern our way into a new reality in which perhaps we look at other priorities and apportionments and things, so these churches that are struggling, understandably, are equipped to pay this new minimum salary, because all of us know our pastors spend a lot on education, and there are a lot of personal expenses, and there is indebtedness, and the system we have in place, which is loving and nurturing, certainly is far from perfect. And the least we can do, especially when you consider that our colleagues just to the south of us in North Carolina already have a minimum salary for elders of $51,000, okay? I think it is prudent for us to take this step for the benefit of taking care of our pastoral families. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone, I can't read that. Hey, do not yell. Do not yell. I do not like that. That is not proper etiquette for the annual conference. Everybody who wants to speak will get to. I saw this gentleman at this microphone, and I can't see the number of it to save my life, but he knows I'm looking at him, and he will talk now.
This is the second time y'all got scolded when I came up to a microphone, I just want to say. But Brian Lamb, Lady, Mission Rivers District, Wrights Chapel. I rise in favor of the motion, and I just have 2 simple points that I want to make to the laity in particular. If you want a full-time clergy, you have to pay an equitable salary for a full-time clergy. Secondly, I work 9 months a year, 7.5 hours a day, 5 days a week, and my starting salary was $48,000 6 years ago. And we're expecting our pastors to be on call 24/7. And as a past pastor, I understand what that expectation is. I understand what it felt like to not be able to pay my bills, to have to put my loans in forbearance, which, by the way, that process is now under attack with many individuals. And ultimately, how are you supposed to do? Psychologically, you have to take care of your needs before you can take care of other needs. And when you're living day to day, trying to figure out how am I going to pay that bill, how am I going to put food on my table, pay the exorbitant bill for the parsonage that's too big for you to have in the first place, and then be expected to tend to their flock. And so for those reasons, I still don't think it's enough, but I vote for or approve
Okay,
that.
thank you. Okay, let's hold our applause. Anybody want to speak, have a card, lift it high? 9, microphone 9.
Thank you, Bishop. Lori Valentine, clergy, Shenandoah District, St. James United Methodist Church, and Mount Zion, Rockingham. I want to thank Reverend King for his question. Mine kind of follows that. For the local pastor tier, did the committee consider those who are either halfway through their MDiv at, say, 40 hours, which is academically the equivalent of the course of study, or those local pastors who may already have an MTS certificate, because those would be different academic pieces that would be completions that personally and a lot of my colleagues, it's much more expensive than just a course of study.
We'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, I think that we need some clarification, so the committee will take that and will give us clarity on that.
Thank you very much.
You
As someone who's been blessed by the generosity of this conference, it would help a number of us if that was considered as part of this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other cards? We've had several speeches for, is this a question or a speech against? Don't yell at me, I can see. Way back in the back.
Good morning, Bishop. Ryan Ware, clergy, Smith Memorial United Methodist Church on the Mountain View District. I have a question.
Okay.
I appreciate the question that my colleague Andrew Labar-Dietz brought before us, and while I appreciate that that answer is contained in the next report, I think it might be helpful for the body before we vote on our minimum compensation to understand where our conference ranks versus other annual conferences. So if we could get that part of the next report, I think that might be beneficial for the body. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. What do you think?
Would you like me to give that statistic?
I think, why don't you just give us that statistic, Reverend Colwell? I think that'd be helpful.
So part of the just compensation report this year was to study the statistics, and that included looking at other annual conference, especially within the southeastern jurisdiction. Westpath just did a report this past year, and one of their findings is that the Virginia Conference was the second lowest paid conference in the southeastern jurisdiction over the Appalachia Conference. One of the reasons that we think that that is we have many small rural churches and few larger churches, and so that brings our salaries down. We're going to talk a little bit more about what that looks like for us and some recommendations in the next report, but the average salary for pastors, and we separated this by male and female in our report, is the mean average is $65,747 for females, and for males, it's $72,305. And nationally, the average pastor salary is $80,000, so it's not too much lower, but this is something that we're actively working on, but this is where we are at this moment in time.
Thank you. Just going to gauge, is the body ready to vote on the equitable compensation recommendations? Lift a hand if you're ready. Okay, the report is before you. If you would approve the report of the Equitable Compensation Committee, please raise your hand. Okay, those opposed, same sign. And it is accepted. Thank you, Reverend Durant. Appreciate it. And now Reverend Jessie Colwell will grace us with her presence again. In her posse.
Bishop Sue Hopper Johnson, Secretary Reverend Claire Miller, and Conference Lay Leader Martha Stokes. I'm Jessie Colwell, the Director of Clergy Excellence and also the Chair of the Just Compensation Task Force. My committee stands behind me today, and we have spent many, many hours, friends, studying our very own statistics and the statistics of other annual conferences across the nation and in the southeastern jurisdiction. It is my joy to present to you our findings and some recommendations. Last year, you voted for us to continue our work, studying salary statistics, including documented inequities regarding clergy status, district, gender, race, ethnicity, and years of service. Reverend Mike Nelson made a motion to also include parsonage standards, which was added to the work of this committee. I present to you a summary of our findings, which can also be found on pages 98 through 99 in the Book of Reports. This year, we enlisted the help of statistician Dr. Kwang Yoon, who did a statistical analysis on the following: the Virginia Conference United Methodist 2024 salaries starting on July 1st, 2024 for full-time clergy relating to gender, race and ethnicity, district, status, including licensed local pastors, provisional members, associate members, and full members, and years of service. Once the data was collected, our team decided to take out some outlier information, which we believed may skew the results, including deacons and those serving in extension ministry. Our most important findings included the following. 1, in the Virginia Conference VUMC, we have a gender gap in pay. Female pastors, on average, received $1,774 less annually than their male peers. Some of this can be explained by the fact that there are more male clergy than female clergy, and that female clergy were more often in the role of associate pastor rather than lead pastor. However, we found that within 2 out of our 8 districts, female pastors were the highest earners. Still, this gap is notable. Second, we found there was a race-ethnicity gap. African American pastors received on average $797 more than their white peers, while Hispanic and multiracial pastors received $4,637 less than their white counterparts. One explanation for why African American salaries are higher than those of their white peers is that there are fewer African American pastors, which means 1 of 2 higher salaries raise the whole average much more than in a larger sample size, resulting in a higher mean. Also, most receive higher salaries due to longer years of service. The same is true for our Hispanic multiracial pastors. There is such a small group that 1 or 2 lower salaries lowers their mean. Our third finding was years of service. On average, pastors were paid $217 more per extra year of service. Our fourth finding was that among the 8 districts, this may be no surprise to you, the Northern Virginia district had the highest clergy salaries. The unadjusted mean salary difference between Northern Virginia and other districts was $8,727. However, considering the higher cost of living, the adjusted mean difference shrank to $4,193. Our fifth finding was limited itineracy. Those pastors who were on limited itineracy were paid $1,088 less than their counterparts. Our sixth finding, average worship attendance. For each worship attender, the pastor's salary increased by $28. For example, if the average worship attendance increases from 100 to 200 members, the pastor's salary would increase by $2,800. You can see all of this data and more findings and their supporting numbers, tables, and matrices on the conference website, if you would like to see that in detail. As we continued our studies, we had several celebrations. The first celebration is based on the task force findings. As you just heard in the previous report, the Equitable Compensation Commission added new categories to the recommendation for minimum salaries, including the differentiation of licensed local pastors based on their education and the new category of associate members placed above provisional members due to their lifetime status. Our second celebration was following the Just Compensation Task Force, spearheaded by the Parsonage Subcommittee. The Cabinet updated its policy on minimum standards for a parsonage. Updates to this policy include required measures to be proactive about safety and health hazards, technology needs, heating and air conditioning, and maintenance. And two of my favorite examples of this policy include an addition of a health and safety section in which the church charge is responsible for regular inspections of the parsonage for health and environmental hazards such as radon, mold, asbestos, lead paint, water cleanliness, carbon monoxide, mercury, and electrical hazards. The last policy stated that central air conditioning is desirable everywhere, whereas the new policy requires it. Amen?
I feel a cool breeze
I know,
blowing.
it feels so good in here. And you can read the report of the Parsonage Subcommittee, which was created by Reverend Dr. Mike Nelson on page 100 of the book. What else are we doing today? 100 of the Book of Reports. And you'll be able to see that final cabinet document very soon, and it will be on the cabinet policies. So be on the lookout for that on the conference website. Our third celebration is the task force celebrates the statistical services of Dr. Kwang Yoon, a lay member of Korean United Methodist Church of Greater Washington, who is one of our Virginia Conference UMC members. He graciously donated his time and expertise for this important work, and the only thing he allowed us to pay for was the software in which we needed to use in order to incorporate the multiple regression statistical analysis. Thank you, Dr. Yu. Having studied all these statistical findings, we've made several recommendations. The only financial impact on the annual conference's budget will be the continued use of Dr. Yoon's services, including the software, which will total $5,000 for the statistical software needed over 4 years, which would be approximately $1,250 per year. The remaining recommendations all involve further study and do not require immediate action. The recommendations before you include Recommendation 1. We recommend retaining Dr. Kwang Yoon's statistical services for the next 4 years so that the annual conference can do a comparative statistical analysis annually. We estimate this service would cost up to $5,000 total for the 4 years. The second recommendation is we recommend dissolving the Just Compensation Task Force and entrusting this work to the Director of Belonging and Advocacy of the Virginia Conference UMC, who will work alongside the Virginia Conference boards and agencies as related to this work. These groups would continue to study the statistics of the Virginia Conference clergy annually, focusing on clergy status, district, gender, race, ethnicity, disability, and years of service. We ask that they present any recommendations to the 2026 annual conference. Recommendation 3. We recommend the Director of Belonging and Advocacy as a member of the Cabinet, in consultation with the Order of Deacons, study and establish a just salary policy for deacons serving full-time within the local church. This statistical study would include years of service, housing allowance, and salaries based on deacons' education and clergy status. Our fourth recommendation, we recommend that the Committee on Finance and Administration, in consultation with the Office of Pensions and Benefits, study the possibility of creating a system in which the Virginia Conference UMC would administer payroll processing and tax-related reporting for all clergy appointed to local churches within the VAUMC. We asked after they study this information, they present any recommendations to the 2026 annual conference. The fifth recommendation, we recommend that the Equitable Compensation Commission researches models of minimum base compensation based off of the status, education, years of service, and economic variables, including cost of living. There is a wonderful example from the Western North Carolina Conference that we included in our report, where they have a table of years of service to try to determine clergy salaries. We ask that they present any recommendations to the 2026 annual conference. And finally, our last recommendation, recommendation 6, we recommend that the cabinet use findings from this report to inform their conversations about setting clergy salaries with staff pastor-parish relations committees. These recommendations are now before you.
Okay, the floor is open. The report is before you. Microphone 1 or microphone 2.
T.S. Calvert.
Hello, Sarah Calvert, District Superintendent of Mountain View District for the moment. I am she, her. I am none of the other things I need to say. I'm clergy. So question, in the recommendations of turning over the work of this committee, one of the things that wasn't mentioned was education status. I wondered if you considered that, or if maybe that's something we could amend the report to suggest.
Yes, I think that's wonderful. I think that is part of what our task was for the Equitable Compensation Commission, and that they will continue to be looking at that as well when they're setting salaries. But we will include that in the work.
So it wasn't in the recommendation that education would be part of, it was along with disability and all those things, but education wasn't mentioned
Yes,
there.
we're happy to add that to the study.
Make
Thank
that
you,
as
Sarah.
a friendly amendment.
Well, there's not a friendly amendment, but if the House would approve adding that, lift your hand. Okay, thank you. I didn't think there'd be a big problem. Friendly amendments never are. Microphone 2.
Youth of Hardman Cromwell, clergy. I am in Northern Virginia, retired clergy, retired elder. African American, okay? I have a question that I read about on 98. When you were talking about the findings and you did the district one, you said that Northern Virginia, I thought I heard correctly, was 8,727 ahead of the others. But when I look at page 98, it says 18,727. Which
So
is the
it
correct
was
number?
18,000. However, with the cost of living variable, that brought it down to a lower number.
So when you said 8,727, that was not what you meant to say. Is that correct?
Let me see what I said. Let's see.
I think you just misread the number.
I might have misread the number. I apologize.
Okay, because I was really startled when I read this number at home.
Sure.
And then when you said it was less, I was like, okay, which number is the correct one? Thank you.
No, great question. Thank you. I apologize.
Okay, I saw a card, microphone 5. You're already there. And then
Good morning. My name is Dr. Allison Hickey. I'm a recent DMIN graduate from Wesley Theological Seminary, so I wanted to acknowledge the prayer this morning by our great leader. I am laity, unusual for a DMIN, but my project for this effort was really focused on women and girls, and in the course of that project, I had the opportunity to interview many women clergy. And their thoughts in and around what makes it ease of work for them to do the Lord's work they're called to do. I am a Mission River District member at large, but I'm also a member of Peace United Methodist Church. I am a she, her, and a strong advocate for the community that helps us do that gender identity. It's a long introduction to say, as an advocate for women and girls in all walks of life, I have been blessed in my life to live and work in environments that made salary gender neutral. There were no gender opportunities for having different genders because I'm also a 24-year retired member of the military. Genders did not play into salary negotiations and salary discussions. And while I really appreciate the work that's been done by this committee, the data is really a good and powerful way to understand what's happening. The recommendations feel like kicking the can once more. We have been reviewing and looking at the differences between male and female pay equity for a really long time. And my question is, when do we make the recommendation that there has to be parity between male and female members of the clergy?
Thank you for that. And I would say we collected our statistics that way to be able to see if there was a gap, but I think the goal is to equalize the pay structure. And that's something, the hard part about the Virginia Conference is that we are so vast and wide, and we encompass so many different geographical areas, and that also, the cost of living in all of those areas influences what some of these salaries are, and so they greatly wide across the Virginia Conference, and they greatly vary also by district. And the reason that we can't come today and share a number like some annual conferences do is because it varies so much that we're unable to do that in a way that is just for every clergy person. And so while we've done the work and the statistical analysis, we feel that we need to spend more time to be able to create some kind of equation table to make sure that there's equitable pay for all. It is hard because we are so large and we are so vast and wide. And that's why we would like to do further study, because it's more complicated than we had first envisioned when we started doing this work.
Okay, microphone 5. Excuse me. I see you over here.
Thank you. My name is Katie Fruman. I'm here today as laity from Trinity UMC Orange in the 3-Notch District. I have a question about dissolving the committee and referring that work. The recommendations all sound like a lot of work. How do you kind of envision that working, and does that seem like too much work for one person, and maybe should the committee continue, or should it be another committee or a smaller committee? Because as a former SPRC person, even just kind of looking at centralizing, administering payroll sounds like a whole lot.
That's a great question. And so we have never had a conference person dedicated to this type of work before. I was tasked to do this work due to virtue of my role, but now we have someone coming in who's going to be doing that work all across the annual conference and having those findings, so we believed that that was the best person. And we also left it open enough that they could include as many committees and agencies as they thought was necessary to spread out the work as well.
Okay, microphone 3.
Rob Getty, lay leader Dahlgren UMC, Mission Rivers. You comment about having the averages being skewed by having a few outlier high or low salaries. Can you provide any information about what the median salaries are for the 50-50 break-off? My church was in financial distress last year, and we're looking for trying to get a cheaper pastor, and we didn't have a lot of data for what we were trying to...
Sure.
Hey! When you can't pay your apportionments, you gotta find something.
I hear you. And so our last,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
So there's not that data other than the equitable compensation line. So if you're going, okay, as long as we're above that, is that fair? There's no median data to actually say, is what we're offering reasonable?
So we provided those 2 mean salaries for the male to female, but our last recommendation was to have the cabinet use this information as they're working with churches to set those salaries. So that's the hope, that the cabinet brings that information as well to be able to give you a starting point as to what that would work for your church, how that would work. We're looking at creating something like that. I mean, that is, if you look at the Western North Carolina policy, like they actually have like a table of years of service and different things that I think would help churches be able to have that information. And that's what we're asking to be created in this next year.
Good. Microphone 3.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Amara from the Alexandria District. I want to thank the last speaker for the data on the analysis performed, and to piggyback on the previous speaker, the question he asked. I was wondering why the statistician used the mean rather than the median, given that we all know incomes are not normally distributed. The median is a more reliable indicator of the general picture of the pay of individuals. So in future analysis, I'm volunteering. The conference doesn't have to pay me. I would like to partner with that statistician to have a more accurate analysis. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we provided both of those numbers in our report as well. We have the median and the mean, so you can see all that information. Thank you.
Okay, microphone 6.
Thank you, Bishop. Andrew Labar Dietz, Deacon in Full Connection, serving the Peakland Charge, Mountain View District, he, him. I know it's an outlier, but I was wondering if we had, or if we could hear the difference between the average compensation of deacons versus elders.
So that wasn't something that we had ready to present. What we found with the deacon salaries is that they widely varied, as some work in the local church and many work in extension ministries, sometimes all over the world. And so that is the work that we hope to be able to bring by doing the deacon study next year, but we don't have that information to present today. But it is an excellent question.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, let's do 5 and then 9. I see you way back there in 11 too, barely, but I see you. Go ahead, microphone 5.
Reverend Kathleen Monge, retired elder, Mission River Districts, presently serving Memorial United Methodist Church in Charles City. In your studies or in the discussions, was there any portion to include where pastors have been reappointed or are being appointed to a new appointment where a lowering of the salary was used to have a congregation accept a female clergy or a clergy non-white male?
So one of the factors of our study was to see, was there an impact on clergy move, just in general, but we did not do a study based off the question that you just asked. So maybe that information can be included.
May I add that as a recommendation to be included for the cabinet to look at their pattern of discussing with potential congregations the matching of not gifts and graces or years of service, but to eliminate the gender. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll add that.
Okay.
The salary lowered when a female or other.
Good, thank you. Microphone 9 and then microphone 11.
Hello, my name is Tyler Williams. I am a youth member at annual conference. I am 16 and I go by he, him pronouns. So I have a question about the dissolvement of this committee. So do you think it would be possible to, instead of dissolving the committee and putting that responsibility on one person, do you think it would be possible to appoint someone to take on those responsibilities together with the current committee, so that instead of putting it all on one person, you have one person that specializes in it but can work together with all of the people who are already experienced with this kind of thing? Because I remember in the report you were talking about having this person learn about it. I feel like it would just be a more efficient way to go about this if you maybe just added another member and kept the committee doing what it has been doing for a long time.
Thank you for that. Yes. We thought about that, and I think that when Lan is doing this work, he can invite any of us to be part of it. But since this is one of his sole responsibilities is to make sure that he is being an advocate for all in the conference, included laity and clergy, we thought that that would be a more natural person to lead it than myself as the Director of Clergy Excellence. And that's really kind of would be the only change, is we'd have a change in leadership and he would have access to all of the same people to do this work. But we also wanted to respect him coming in and what he saw and what he thought might be needed, which might be different than what we're doing. So we didn't want to limit him by having a committee that continued when he might need something completely different to do this work.
Okay, microphone 11, way in the back.
My name is Corey Robbins. I'm an ordained elder. My charge is in the Mission Rivers District, but I serve on loan in North Carolina. I'm female, white. My preferred pronouns are she, her. Just a request for information. I was shocked when reading the report and realizing, I'm so short, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I can see you, Corey. I see you. You're kind of blocked by the paper.
But you have a lovely forehead.
I see you. Short in stature, mighty in voice. So question, You said when we fell right above the Appalachia Conference, and you said we think that's because we have more rural churches. I appreciate that thought, but I'd like the research because I can't think of any other conferences in the southeastern jurisdiction that don't have a lot of rural churches. So could we find out if that's why, or if it's just been a long time of not paying our clergy well?
We can do that research.
Thank you.
We also are that's part of it too. We have been low for such a long time. It's going to take us a minute to make it higher.
Okay, we'll continue at microphone 11.
Thank you. I'm a little taller. I'm Reverend Katie Gooch, clergy, ordained elder, campus minister at the Pace Center 3-Notch District. I'm an adult, she, her. My question is in regards to the parsonage. As we increased the standards for minimum parsonage standards, does that affect at all the suggestion that we have for housing allowances? So that's my question is, as we're increasing minimum parsonage standards, are we asking churches and the conferences employees to increase housing allowances to be able to meet these same standards?
So that's a great question, Katie. At this moment in time, our housing policy that was created as a cabinet policy was to pick 3 locations nearest to the church in housing in order to divide that to get an equitable housing salary, and that is the formula to get that. And the parsonage standards at this point are not weighed against the way that we're setting housing, but I think that's an important thing to keep in front of the cabinet as they do their policies.
Okay. Microphone 2.
Jonathan Page, clergy on extension working in the conference office, 3-Notch District. I'm an adult white male and I use he, him pronouns. I rise on behalf of our Director of Belonging and Advocacy, incoming Director of Belonging and Advocacy, who I'm sitting next to, who requested that I stand, since he is not yet in that role, and share that he will be leading this work, but not doing this work. The work is ours to do collectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Microphone 5.
Hi, my name is Drew Entz. I'm a clergy person at Arise Campus Ministry in the Northern Virginia District. I am a adult male using he, him pronouns. And one of the questions I had was, especially after the last question we just took around minimum clergy salaries, has the task force taken up the thought of the cabinet putting out a cost of living increase that should be adopted by the local church? This might give local churches more time for planning instead of here at conference, and may take away the awkwardness of clergy people having to share their stories and advocating for their own minimum salary in front of the entire conference. And I'm just wondering if that was something maybe that the task force had considered.
I believe that that is a factor that the Equitable Commission takes into consideration each year when they set the minimum salary. Tom, is that? So that is something the Commission on Equitable Compensation includes when they present the minimum salaries each year.
Thank you.
And the Treasurer's Office.
Way in the
And
back, I
Treasurer's
see you.
David, we see you.
You don't yell, we'll get to you. You'll have a turn, but right now I'm looking in the back. I don't know what mic you're nearest to, but find the one nearest to you and go ahead. 7. Microphone 7.
Reverend Devin Most Earl. I am an ordained elder serving as the campus minister and director at Wesley at UVA, 3-Notch District, young adult. My question is if the task force or whoever moves forward with this could consider conference employees, which includes our Wesley foundations, in the housing, the fair housing consideration with housing allowance. Right now, conference employees get $15,000 a year, which is $1,250 a month for housing. And I know in Richmond, that's probably not totally paying for your housing, as well as in a lot of places where we are.
Thank you. Okay. Microphone 3. Was this who you were yelling about? Okay, there's one up there. Okay, just want to clarify. It's dark up there, so go ahead, microphone 3.
My name is Annette Patrick. I'm from Mountain View District, laity at large, she, her. Is that all you need?
I think we're good, yeah.
Okay. I have 3 questions, and a lot of it will be guesswork to answer. Do you anticipate that equalization for pay based on gender will be recommended in a single year, like next year maybe?
So I think, I'm not sure if that can happen within the context of a year. I think what we're trying to work on and task the next committee is how can we make it just and equitable, not just based on gender, but also on education, years of service, and cost of living, and those kinds of factors. So I don't know if that can be rectified in a year. I mean, that's great. That would be amazing. But they will continue to do that work to close that gap.
Second question, do you anticipate that there will be equalization based on the cost of living rather than across the board equalization based on all those other factors?
Cost of living is something that we look at, but it varies so greatly that it is a factor that's difficult to use in the equation. I don't know if Tom wants to speak to that.
So with the 18,000 that is actually 4,000 basically difference between Northern Virginia and the rest of the state may or may not go away?
It may not, because if the cost of living is higher, the salary will probably be higher to compensate for that.
Okay. Last question, how do you anticipate that these changes will affect apportionments?
I'm not sure I'm the person to answer that question.
Doug, would you like to answer?
Doug or David?
David, one of you?
And I'm going to apologize. It's hard to hear the question standing back there, and I have 57-year-old heavy metal ears, and was not able to hear the question fully.
Poor choices, maybe.
Yeah. I fully own my full choices and enjoyed many of them.
Question again was, how do you anticipate that these equalization changes will affect apportionments?
I don't know that there's going to be any correlation between the equalization and apportionments. Obviously, clergy salaries are a part of the apportionment formula. But if we do it on a conference-wide basis, which is what I think this is doing, it should not have too much impact on the apportionments because the budget will stay the same. It's just how it's allocated. So if every church kind of moves in the same direction in any one issue, the apportionments do not change for particular churches. Did I answer your question?
Probably as best you could. Thank you.
I give it my best. Thank you.
Okay, in the dark, microphone 13. Shine some light on her, please. Yay.
My name is Judy Worthington. I'm retired clergy from the Coastal Virginia District, and my pronouns are she and her. I speak in support and gratitude for the work of the Just Compensation Committee, but I'd just like to remind everyone that compensation affects your entire life. Our pensions are lower because of the compensation differences. Our Social Security benefits are lower because of the compensation differences. And I'd like to maybe encourage some work that looks at pensions, not to change our pensions are what our pensions are, but looking at them and the disparities between them for the different race, gender, and all of the other issues, because it does affect our lives in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Microphone 4.
James Bowers, Elder in Full Connection, St. Andrews, Portsmouth, Coastal Virginia District. I just have a question for information. I was wondering, in your research, was there any comparison in gender compensation relative to roles served, pastors, associate pastors, and so forth?
No, we didn't really focus our work on that, but that's a great question.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I saw microphone 5 in the middle here. Blue blazer, or gray blazer, or blazer type.
Bob Talbot, Coastal Virginia District, pastor, and he, him. One thing, and I may have misinterpreted what I read, but one thing that we've not talked about that I think is huge, did I understand that you're looking at the conference paying pastor salaries through the conference office instead of the churches paying pastor salary?
That's a great question. And so what we have proposed for them to review is what would it look like for churches to pay their pastors' salaries to the conference, and the conference would distribute that to the pastors, and also would take care of all of the W-2s and paperwork like that that's so difficult for churches to complete sometimes.
To me, that's huge.
So we're looking at that.
Because it takes a lot of stress off of pastors. I don't know if you've ever served at a place where it was hard to get your paycheck.
Sure, exactly. Exactly.
But yeah, it takes a lot of stress off of pastors, as well as it gives the conference flexibility in equalizing salaries, and it lets the cabinet send pastors where their gifts and graces are really needed.
I think you need to clarify it's administrative and not...
Yeah, so what we're recommending for them to review is just the administrative task of receiving the salaries and then distributing them directly to the pastors. I think down the road, it might be something to consider as they're doing that research, to look at how would that also affect our ability for more just compensation.
Okay, way in the back to my right, microphone. I can't see the microphone numbers. Whatever, go to the microphone nearest to you. Oh, you're at a microphone. I can't.
I know, you can't see, it's true.
Okay, yes, that's you. Whatever number is in front of you that I can't see because their head's in front of it.
Hi, thank you, Bishop. Michelle Matthews, Elder in Full Connection in the Northern Virginia District, Kingstown Communion Charge. I have noticed first, thank you for your report. Thank you for the VUMPI report. I've noticed that we've had a couple of reports that affect each other, and wondering how your task force took into account the decisions being made this year related to direct bill health. I know personally at my church, it's going to affect our ability to increase pastor salary to be direct bill paid, and significantly impacted. So there seem to be competing desires and competing expectations. I'm wondering if the two can work together.
Thank you, Michelle. So John was a member of our committee, and we informed the committee that these were changes that would be occurring. And I think part of what we're asking churches to do is just to do what we've asked them to do, is to pay the pastor's salary and pensions and benefits, and this is an additional level of accountability for that to happen. So that certainly was part of our conversation, and that's why John and David are both on the committee, and Tom Durrance as well. But our work was more, what are our statistics, what are our findings, and how can we make more just compensation? That is something we had before us, but it wasn't something that was part of our statistical analysis.
Okay, somebody else in the dark, I think. 12, okay, microphone 12. I see you back there.
Good morning. Ellis Crum, clergy, Wallace Memorial in Hampton, he, him, and I'm also the president of the VMCR. So I rise, I'm a little concerned with the recommendation that the work of this committee will be now, I guess, pushed over to the new Director of Advocacy and Belonging. With all that has to happen in the initial year, I'm a little lost at how we are setting that position up for success by saddling it with the compensation question when there's so much to learn outside of compensation. So I'm just rising as a point of concern.
Thank you. So I would say he still has access to all of these people and all the research that we have done, and we will certainly make sure that he is supported as he does this work, and like he said, as he tasks others to continue to do this work.
Microphone, whatever that is, I have no idea. 6, okay, y'all help me. 6.
Bishop Andrew Ware, Coastal Virginia District, Beech Grove United Methodist Church. I am an adult male using he, him pronouns. I'd like to ask about the understanding of the future of bivocationalism for pastors. As cost of living continues to go up in our culture, and unfortunately there is a response that in a lot of ways, churches can't respond by continuing to give their pastors raises. The conference often doesn't have the full ability to be able to make sure that pastors can make up to that amount. This would probably be a good question both for Jesse, the board, just compensation, about what it would look like for some of our pastors to be bivocational, what role the conference could help us play in that. Obviously, that also means having a job that isn't within the church. I know we have that in a lot of ways now, but as something that's recommended for churches to be able to both afford a pastor and for a pastor to be able to afford a cost of living. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
I just want to offer to you, I'm Doug Forrester, the Valley Ridge District Superintendent, adult, he, him pronouns. I just want to let you all know, let the whole body know that one of the best things that I've seen in my 5 years as a district superintendent is work that's being done through the Lewis Center at Wesley Theological Seminary that's called the Religious Workforce Project. And it is an in-depth study with both quantitative and qualitative data on exactly what you just asked about bivocational ministry across the country and across different denominations. It's a great resource to see a very accessible, very deep dive on exactly that question. I'm familiar with it because I was a very small part of that process, but I'm familiar with it as well, and I offer it to you just as anytime that conversation comes up, the cabinet can attest to this. I always tell people to go to the Lewis Center website and look up the Religious Workforce Project. I believe the URL is religiousworkforce.com. Thanks.
Okay, microphone over there. 1, not 1, 4. Can I ask that we have different numbers next time that I can see? It would be helpful.
Brody Cameron, St. Mark's Manassas.
We need mic 4 on, please.
Brody Cameron, St. Mark's Youth Delegate, and I would like to call the question.
Okay. The question has been called, and we will immediately move. We have a second, and we immediately move into a vote. If you would approve. I heard a second. We're good. I think we're ready to go. And it doesn't have any, if you have 75 seconds, it really doesn't matter. But anyhow, if you would like to move this on for a vote, lift your hands. Okay, we have a 2/3 vote, and we will move immediately into a vote. If you would approve the recommendations of this task force, would you please lift your hand? Thank you. Those opposed? And I would like to thank all of you for a lot of time and energy, and I let this discussion go on because this is an adaptive challenge and not a technical challenge. That as we have increasingly shrinking churches and increasingly higher costs of living, those two don't work together. And so we're going to have to be creative together and figure out new ways of funding pastors so that they have satisfactory living conditions that churches can handle. And it's going to take all of our creativity and all of us working together to do it. But to approach a question, you first of all have to know what the issues are. And I think you have done a good job, and I think it's really to Virginia's credit that we are looking at this stuff for the first time in a long time with hard lenses and trying to figure some of this out. So I thank you for your work. It clearly is ongoing. It clearly will have, but we need as much creativity. We know, I think we can say we know the problems really well. And thank you for establishing all the problems this morning. But now we need to move in, how do we creatively address these issues in ways they've never been addressed before? So thank you all. We appreciate it.
Bishop.
Okay, we're going to move into a 15-minute stretch break, and we will be reconvening at 10:47. Okay, so please be in your seats at 10:47. Started. Okay, before we get started, I want to correct an error I made, and I unintentionally offended some Wesley Seminary folks. I have been more familiar with Candler's polity, and there the dean is the head kahuna. But at Wesley, he's the president. So President David McAllister Wilson, who is going to retire this year, but I'm very hopeful we'll see him next year at our retirement or maybe speaking at our memorial service, but I probably should talk to him before I suggest that. So, but you might encourage him if you see him. But he has been such a tremendous asset and a valued member of the Virginia Annual Conference. So I wanted to correct that unintentional error. Okay, microphone 5.
Thank you, Bishop. My name is Ashley Parker. I am a lay member here on behalf of the Northern Virginia District. I'm a white female. And if you'll allow me, I would just like 60 seconds to call attention to something.
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you and everyone on the stage for all the work you're doing and acknowledge that everyone in this room is doing their very best, and I mean that with all sincerity. As I'm sure you've noticed, there are some microphones that are very hard for you to see between the darkness, the cameras in the way, heads in the way. A couple of items ago, a couple of reports ago, I noticed someone standing at microphone, I want to say 9, very first, and was the 7th person called. On the last report, someone was standing at microphone 7 as 5 other people at microphone 2, 5 went ahead of them, and the question got called before they got to speak. I do not know the solution, and I know that you have noticed the problem, but
I'm just going to say I don't see it as a problem in the sense that we want everybody to speak.
Yes.
And the order doesn't really matter.
I just want to make sure we're being equitable
and if
for
somebody
all of our...
calls the question, by virtue of calling the question, debate will be cut off. So I would say as long as debate goes on, just be patient at whatever microphone you're at, wave your card, don't yell, and we will get to everybody in due time. Okay?
Thank you, Bishop.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Microphone 3.
Thank you, Bishop. Bill Davidson, retired 3 Notch District, male, he, him pronouns. I'd like to make a motion to reconsider, if we can, the report of the Just Compensation Task Group to make a motion. I think would it be in order for me to read that for full information in that regard?
Yes.
Bishop? All right. I move that the clergy housing policy be revised to include conference staff, which would also include campus ministers.
Okay, I think first of all we have to weigh the motion to reconsider. So my question is, did you vote no on the it would require it's out of order unless somebody voted yes on the previous one.
I'm on the task force. It's a little hard to vote against it, I guess, Bishop.
Okay.
Perhaps one of my colleagues will take up that.
Well, I think what I would say is I do think that conference staff housing is a problem, and I would ask the task force to consider that, but it also is a matter that needs to go to CFNA for budgetary too. So I think if we'll ask them to look at that.
Okay, they're going to.
Okay? Okay. Now, moving on, I think, looking around, and I'm so grateful I have a chart of microphones, so I do have help up here, so now I have the chart. Yay. See? Some problems can be solved. We've spent most of the morning on problems that are very hard to solve, but that one was solved. Now we're moving into our treasurer's report, and I am delighted to invite our conference treasurer, Mr. David Domacy, forward for that report.
Thank you. I remembered last year I cut mine short when I read the room. We got an hour, so I think I can fill the whole hour this time. Oh, I'm just kidding with you guys. Good morning, Bishop Halpert Johnson, Lay Leader Stokes, and members, guests, and friends in the annual conference, I am honored to present the report of the Treasurer for the Virginia Conference. This is more than a collection of numbers. It is a testimony to the faithfulness, the generosity, and the mission-driven work of our congregations across the Commonwealth. As we reflect on the close of 2024, we give thanks for the vitality of our conference. We stand as a connectional body of 861 churches and faith communities, serving 250,000 members. Our average worship attendance of more than 75,000 weekly participants speaks to a vibrant worshiping community, both in person and online, who remain deeply engaged in the life of the church. Even amid change and challenge, God is clearly at work. In 2024, we celebrated 1,746 professions of faith and 1,280 baptisms. Over 41,000 individuals engaged in small groups, underscoring our commitment to discipleship and community building. These numbers are not just data, they are stories of transformation and grace. Our mission impact continues to expand in bold ways. Nearly 39,000 individuals served in missions, reaching more than 1.5 million people. And significantly, 7.8% of all church revenues were dedicated to mission work, a testament to our collective priority to be the hands and feet to Christ in the world. Moving on to more financial data, I'd like to talk about our financial commitment report. In 2024, apportionment receipts totaled over $22.4 million, with a collection rate of 82%. This marks a 1.7% increase from the prior year, and we are deeply grateful for the commitment of our churches to the apportionment structure. Second mile giving or conference or benevolences also saw an increase, rising by more than 281,000. This growth reflects a shared investment in the ministries beyond our walls. On page 168, you will find the conference balance sheet. This has significant changes, so I want to highlight this. The nearly 50% growth in assets and the related increase in net assets with restrictions is almost entirely due to the estimated value of closed church property, which is now being held by our trustees. These numbers are reflective as of December 31st, 2024. We were still in the process of bringing churches in from our districts. We will have a full update that will come out in our second quarter report. I want to make you guys aware we are now doing quarterly reports, financial reports that are coming out on the website, but you will see the value of the estimated value of all of the closed church properties held at the conference. Our unrestricted reserves can be found on page 169. In 2024, our unrestricted reserves fell by 108,000 down to roughly 1.8 million. Our apportionment collection shortfall exceeded our investment earnings, despite having a good return in the market. This is not sustainable for the annual conference. We cannot drain our reserves because our reserves is the local church, and we do not want, as an annual conference, to have to go to the local church for funds. I am grateful that in the CFA report that it includes changes to address this issue, and we remain committed to responsible fiscal practices that support both current ministry and long-term sustainability. I have provided a list of the individual funds that are accounted for by my office. They are found on pages 170 to 172. I will trust you will read those, and I will not read them to you. But should you have any questions, please contact my office on any individual one, as I'm always would love to share that data with you. Since I have a little bit of extra time, I want, be careful, I would like to update everybody on an initiative that my office started in conjunction with the foundation and our pensions office, and that is to create a clergy debt relief ministry. We are ready for a soft launch, and we would love people to come in and be the guinea pigs as we work through this, but the ministry is designed to help clergy refinance student loan debt and consumer debt. We will refinance student loan debt at a 2% interest rate for up to 15 years. And we will take clergy debt, consumer debt, it's all clergy debt, for 5 years at 5%. Our goal is to help clergy. We ask them not to be in debt so that it embarrasses them. This is totally confidential. There's only 5 people who will know you applied. Just the people that need to, the minimum number of people who need to process the program. That is myself, Carol Draper, Tina Gudgel, John Fuller, and Courtney Howell in our foundation's office, who's a long-term banker and has expertise in that area. And we encourage you to apply. We want to help you have a strong financial future. I can't do anything about clergy salaries. We're in a declining organization, but we can help you with the money you do have to go farther than help you stretch it farther. So come by. We have a booth in the display area. We have a pamphlet. Come talk to any one of the 5 people I named. We are here to help you go through this. We anticipate a full, online presence, but we want to just start kind of slow and build into that. But I want to thank Pensions, who allocated $1 million to kickstart this to help fund the loans, and the foundation for investing their staff time in helping bring this to life too. So, Bishop, this concludes the report of the treasurer.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for our conference treasurer? Microphone 3.
Reverend Tizzy Von Trapp-Walker, soon to be retired, old adult, she, her.
Wise adult, wise.
Excuse me?
Wise, I think, would be the better.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much. I will take that. I want to thank you for doing this, because I have been one of those clergy that I confess has lied for the last 25 years in saying that I'm not in debt to embarrass the conference. So this gives me hope for those who are following me. One of the reasons why I will continue serving for a little while longer is so I can reduce my debt, and then I'll be free to volunteer with other people, but that is a hard reality, and I'm not proud of it. But and I never feel bad about what I'm not making until I come to annual conference. I'm quite content. So my husband and I have never had aspirations to be wealthy. We have done what we've loved, and we wouldn't do it any other way. But I do thank you for this. It is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. It's grace.
Thank you.
Microphone 5.
Thank you. I'm Lori Roberts. I'm a Northern Virginia delegate at large, a member of Springfield United Methodist Church, and also a surviving clergy spouse. Regarding the issue of clergy debt, I think it's wonderful, something we can do to support our pastors. However, will there be a requirement or expectation for some financial planning, financial literacy to help avoid getting back into debt and helping clergy to keep their finances in order as best as possible?
Yes. Depending on the situation, we will recommend or maybe require, if it's severe, that there will be some financial, counseling may not be the right word, but support. And our foundation and pensions already have a program that we can refer them to. And Westpath has agreed to have an advisor as well to help any clergy with the financial literacy and how to properly use debt. So yes, there are financial resources that come with the program.
Okay, microphone 5, I see you in the back there.
Hi, my name is Samantha Perez, laity, Northern Virginia District, white, she, her pronouns. I'm curious on the mechanism of the debt assistance with the refinancing. Is the conference purchasing the debt? Is there a partner that we're working with to get this specific rate? How does the refinance happen?
The mechanics is we have a new ministry called Clergy Debt Relief, the Virginia Conference Clergy Debt Relief LLC, because that just rolls off your tongue. But it is descriptive. It's a separate entity that will pay off the current debts. And if you have a credit card, it will pay off the debt and then you will close the credit card. That is to protect the goal of this is to help you get out of debt, not to have debt more cheaply. So the purpose of this, the Clergy Debt Relief LLC will own the debt. It'll be a loan with them. They will pay off the other debt, and you will have a signed loan agreement with them. For student loans, it's individuals. It's your student loans, not your spouse's. Or if it's joint debt, for consumer debt, both the clergy and their spouse can participate in that. But we actually pay off the debt, and then the conference doesn't own it. The Clergy Debt Relief owns it.
Thank you.
Okay. Microphone 13.
Good morning, Bishop. Sean Smith. Woo, that's a lot of light. Sean Smith, the Eastern Shore part of the Coastal District, Lower Shore Church. Yes. He, him. So David, thank you so much for all of this and the debt relief program that you're talking about. One of the things that I'm hoping that we can look at going forward, if we're not already, is to help us as clergy understand the tax benefits that are available to us. The last time we had training, which was a couple years ago during COVID, unfortunately the person that trained us was about 3 or 4 years behind on tax laws. Okay. And so, that's behind us, but there are so many, there's the housing exclusion, the reimbursable expenses, and of course it's very cumbersome to do what we have to do to keep those records. But nevertheless, I know from last year's licensing class, that class, they did not know what the breaks were, and so I don't know that we're teaching that. So anyway, that's just my recommendation.
I appreciate that feedback, and that is something I can put on my development calendar, and I will look for partners with VUMPI, the foundation, and Westpath to bring that kind of training to the clergy and work with the cabinet as the best way to deliver that training.
Great. Microphone 6.
Janelle Watson, clergy, Valley Ridge District, Oak Hill, and Embrace, and she, her pronouns. How does student loan debt, transferring that to the conference, affect clergy's ability to participate in the student loan forgiveness program?
There's so many changes to student loan, but the way it stands now, I believe that will eliminate you from the government student loan forgiveness program if you refinance it. So that's part of the discernment process if you contact us. What's the best way? I'm not seeing a political climate that's really leaning in towards forgiving student loans. I'm not political either. I just deal with the reality that I see in front of me. At the interest rates that people are paying student loans, it is obviously a risk reward. If you can lower your interest and pay down more principal, you're going to be farther ahead, but you do give up the ability to have student loans forgiven. Now, if you hold on to that high debt and keep paying it and it never comes to fruition, you might be paying that debt until you retire. I mean, in some cases, and there are no easy answers, and I am not going to try to predict the political climate in the United States. I just want to create a low interest option for our clergy to provide relief today.
Okay,
But I don't want to minimize the fact that clergy are stuck having to make that decision.
Right, sure.
I mean, that is a major decision, and you know, if there is a debt forgiveness, I am not sure that this would qualify. We are writing it so it still is considered student loan debt, but I think it's going to be classified as private student loan debt and not federal student loan debt.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Yes, I'm trying to move us along, but go ahead.
Will your office be able to help clergy advise us or look at what the best option would be?
Yes, we will help put pencil to paper and figure out and give you your options in that process.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that all of us want to express our gratitude to David VAUMC, and I will refer any other questions about this to his office, but I'm excited and appreciate his service. Now I'm going to call on Ms. Angie Williams to give our CFA report. Angie?
Greetings, Bishop Hopper Johnson, Lay Leader Stokes, and the beautiful people, the members and guests of the Virginia Annual Conference. As President of the Council of Finance and Administration, it is my pleasure to present to you our annual report, which can be found on page 173 of your book of reports. And to get us started, I actually want to reflect on a few of the words that our bishop shared with us yesterday morning during our opening worship. It is a time when it is hard to be the church. We are in a time of exile when the church needs to rebuild. And yet we are excited and we are joyous because we are rebuilding the church and we are going into a new era. It's with these words that I want to make a few highlights and give to you some context before we get into the details and the numbers of this report. First of all, I hope that you all had the chance to read the first ever narrative that was produced in close collaboration with our conference ministry staff as part of, again, what our bishop and our lay leaders shared with us yesterday, the faithful next step to implement this for you. The narrative budget is meant to be a communication of the mission and the purpose that we have behind the numbers. So next, I want to just name and again reiterate what our bishop shared yesterday about the reality that we have had in these last 5 years. We have survived COVID. We have gone through disaffiliation, and then also a change in our administration. And no matter where you stand politically, we must acknowledge that this administration has made unprecedented changes impacting the federal workforce. And in case you didn't know, Virginia has more federal employees than any other state except for California. So the pain is real. The pain is real for our people and therefore for our churches. But we will prevail. We know that stabilization can happen. We know that God's grace is sufficient to see us through. And although change is hard, and I would argue maybe harder for us, the people called Methodist, than anyone else, we will rebuild. And we will live into this future that God has given us and the vision that our bishop shared with us yesterday. And so lastly, as we kind of get into the budget, into the numbers, there's 3 things that we ask that you consider. Number 1, that we have in fact reformatted our budget this year. We have restructured apportionments. And finally, as our treasurer already reflected, we are working hard with our investment subcommittee of the Council of Finance and Administration to reduce the financial burden of our churches. And as lay leader Martha Stokes said yesterday, keep your hearts open to the unimaginable. I would say that perhaps it does in fact seem unimaginable that apportionments would ever go down. But that is our long-term plan, that is our strategy, and that is what we are working towards as we work with our investment committee of the Council of Finance and Administration. And so the 2026 proposed budget includes changes to the format, which is now presented in 2 ways. The conference budget reflects the overall spending categories. The conference apportionments reflect the specifics of how these categories are apportioned. And this essentially just offers 2 different perspectives on the same financial information. So let's take a look first at the 2026 proposed conference budget as shown on the screen. The budget for conference mission and ministries is $6,806,000. And here we would like to speak specifically to the 4.7% increase and explain the details of that to you. $480,000 is for health care of our district superintendents, our campus ministers, and our clergy conference staff. These dollars were previously apportioned, and now with the change to direct bill, all of that comes directly into the conference budget. So that $480,000, that is a healthcare increase that comes directly into the conference budget for those healthcare expenses. And then there was a $130,000 addition for the salary and benefits of our new cabinet level position. And we all know that that position of belonging is so vital for our conference. So this equals $610,000 total. So what you see when you're looking at the $306,000 increase, what that means is that there was actually a $304,000 decrease in conference staff and programs, in essence matching the increase with cuts. And because so many of our local churches have also had to make cuts, I think it is important that we name for you that we have also made those considerations in our conference budget in kind. The costs related to retired clergy health at $5,240,000, which this increase, as we have already heard this morning, is due to changes in federal legislation as previously reported in our pensions and health report. And then finally, the cost for worldwide connection remains the same at $4,060,000. You can see here that the active clergy health moving to direct bill has reduced the overall apportioned amount by $8.5 million. bringing our total proposed 2026 budget to $16,106,000, an almost 35% decrease from last year. Next, we will take a look at the 2026 proposed conference apportionments. These categories have been consolidated into 4 funds, 101 through 104. Committed funds are those that have already been allocated for the conference to spend. Expected funds support the resourcing and ministries throughout the conference. And the last 2 funds are the same as the conference budget, retired clergy health, and general and jurisdictional ministries. And finally, in the last section of our report, you will find the policies. There are 3 changes that we want to highlight for you this morning being recommended in this section. As we have shifted the format of the budget in 2026, it is important that churches fund the 101 apportionment, mission and ministries committed, to be paid in full by the end of the year. The second policy is to support our district superintendents, increasing their salaries by 3% in 2026, which will result in a $103,000 annual salary for our district superintendents. I think it is important to remind you and to note that there was no change for our district superintendents last year. And finally, the last policy is to adjust the mileage reimbursement so it is in line with our IRS rate for both staff and volunteers. Bishop Sue, on behalf of the Council of Finance and Administration, I move to adopt the 2026 CFA report in full.
Okay, the report is properly before you from committee. Any discussion? The floor is open now. I don't want to cut off all, I'm going to hold you off a little bit on that. I don't think it's appropriate to cut off all discussion. I see a hand, microphone 9.
Bishop Thomas James, Northern Virginia Elder in Full Connection, serving in Extension Ministry, white, adult male, he, him pronouns. I rise to speech against the report. I am deeply grateful for the work of the CFNA and for the conference treasurer and for the conference business office. And I'm deeply grateful for the necessary conversations that are taking place around how we can fund the work of the conference to ensure that we are offering our local churches a strong system in which they can thrive in carrying out the mission of the United Methodist Church. But I am troubled by the financial implications of Section 1B on page 173 of the conference treasurer's report. With the removal of the active clergy health from the proposed apportionments, many of our local churches, especially our smaller churches with plan-eligible full-time clergy, will find their out-of-pocket church expenses increasing. I fear this will further hinder the ability of small churches to provide equitable compensation to their clergy, and we'll see an even further divide in the compensation workbook, which as a conference we haven't seen since the spring of 2023. I'm also concerned that as line 407, active clergy health, is removed from the apportionments, all churches are still going to be paying apportionments related to active clergy health. As Angie shared just a few moments ago, apportionments will still be needed to cover the health care costs for plan-eligible clergy serving in the district and conference offices. And finally, while I'm grateful for the desire to support the health care costs of our retired clergy, I'm troubled that with the direct bill shift, the funding from the VUMPI reserves that is used to support the cost of health care is being budgeted to support the retired clergy health care costs while asking churches to cover the full cost for active clergy health care. To be honest, I'm really not against the CFNA report because I'm not sure if the direct bill shift is wholly faulty, but at the same time, I am not convinced that the financial difficulties it will cause for smaller churches will be a benefit for the overall ministry of the Virginia Annual Conference. And I'm concerned how this shift will negatively impact the ability of our churches to fairly compensate their clergy, which, as we have heard earlier this morning, is a very important issue for the Virginia Annual Conference. Thank you.
Okay, we've had a speech against. Do we have a speech for? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move this to a vote. If you would approve the report and recommendations of the conference Council on Finance and Administration, please lift your hand. Thank you. Opposed, same sign. And it carries. Thank you very much. We appreciate her so much. Okay, microphone 2.
Youth of Hardman Cromwell, retired clergy. Trinity Alexandria is my charge conference in Nova District. I am a seasoned adult.
Wise, I'd put wise in there too.
She, her. I have a question.
Okay.
I know that we are talking a lot about resources that we really need to support ministry and mission. But there's a line in the report from the conference treasurer that refers to real estate held for sale or to be determined. I was greatly grieved to hear all of the 26 churches that we closed. But I know that there's a policy in place for what to do with properties that are no longer being used for ministry. My question is, and I'm sure it's not an answer right now, but I hope that it's being considered. What are we going to do with the monies that come from these churches that have been closed? And will they be still confined, the money be confined to the policies that we already have in place for church properties? Because I think that needs to be thought about before we are trying to make decisions about what to do with that money. Are there ways that we can relieve some of the things that we've talked about today that will support our ministries, support our clergy, support the small churches that remain? That's my question.
Very good question. The good news is we've been thinking about that nonstop, day and night. And I'd like to call upon David Domacy, and if Amanda Miller-Garber is in the house, I'd love for her to come up if she's here, because we have started a procedure for assessing how we use those closed church monies in ministry. So,
thank you.
Okay. David, are you around? Good, I hear him. Microphone 3, please.
I'm sorry, and I did not hear the question again. I'm sorry.
I can. What I'd like for you to do, and there's Amanda. Good, you can tandem this. Just briefly talk about what we're doing to assess missional uses for closed church monies.
Oh, okay. I'll just go through the whole process because I'm sure everybody's anxious about this. When a church closes, there's a process that takes place with a partnership between the trustees, the conference property advisory team, district leadership, and other people from that community to assess the state of the church, what it can be used for, and a study is done on a hierarchy. Can the church be used for a new faith community? And if that answer is yes, then that tends to be where we go. If that's not a yes, then we look, is there a way for it to be used in a missional way to help that community? And Amanda, you can come in here and join in, but it is done cooperatively through multiple people with plenty of places for feedback to look to see what that property could be used for on a missional basis. If the answer is we do not see, it's not suitable for a missional purpose, maybe it's not in the right location, maybe the structure is not safe or whatever the situation is, then the trustees look, is there a way to hold on to that property and use it as an investment property where in the future things might come about where we could again use that for either a church or a missional purpose. And if that does not come true, then we look at that time to sell it. Selling is the last resort of the process. Is, you know, once you sell a property, you don't get it back. So we go through all painstakingly long study time sometimes to figure out what's the best use, and only after that do we sell it. In some churches, it's a relatively easy process. Others, it's a much longer process. But I think Amanda can talk more detail about the, that's kind of the steps. You want to give them some more detail?
The main thing I would add is that the property advisory team is developing clear and transparent processes that we intend to share on the conference website and in other ways, and we are eager to answer your questions. So please contact me or any member of that team, and we're going to clearly share who that is as well, because we want to be transparent in the way we make decisions.
And I think that once we have an accumulated sufficient funds from church closures, then we will look at grant processes, what we should use, how we can help our existing churches, how those monies should be used, and that all will be analyzed. But rest assured that that money is being held in trust and carefully scrutinized. So these properties are being sold as we go along and used missionally if need be. But I think probably our next annual conference we can have a full, really in-depth report, because all of this groundwork has been laid with the fine leadership of these two and their teams. So I appreciate your work on that. Okay, microphone 5.
Okay. Ann Swank, Valley Ridge District Member at Large, Green Memorial United Methodist Church. Pronouns she, her. I just want to suggest to the committee working with the people, and these churches that are left over, if they are viable, to look at possibly putting them into a situation where the school buildings in particular could be used for housing. Mm-hmm. Green Memorial and Trinity United Methodist joined in this past little over a year ago. And that Trinity school building is going to be put into housing for seniors, which is part of our mission. Mm-hmm. And that is going to become harder for people to find, or homes to live in that they can afford. So I would urge them to look at these kinds of situations where they could utilize those school buildings, if they're viable, to turn into something for housing for people who will no longer be able to find it.
Thank you. Excellent. Microphone 5.
Thank you, Bishop. I'm Nina Cortado Winkler from the Three Notch District, member of Aldersgate Church and district delegate. In reading the financial reports, I see that we have an extraordinary, certainly once in a lifetime, maybe once in many lifetimes, accumulation of wealth from all of these closed churches. I worked in government budgeting for many years, and I know there is a tendency when you have money to spread it around through as many constituent groups as you possibly can in order to keep people happy. I would like to challenge the conference to think extremely strategically about how to use this vast amount of money in order to make a huge leap forward for this conference, rather than spread the money around to all the many, many needy groups that we have. I don't know what that means. Is that a huge evangelism move? Is it a huge anti-poverty move? Is it a fix all the churches, make everything handicapped accessible mood? Mm-hmm. It could be many, many, many things. But I hope that you, Bishop, and the cabinet will think boldly you'll never have a chance like this again.
Right.
Let's not let it pass.
Thank you. That's a
Thank
good
you.
word. Thank you. Okay, microphone 4.
Steve Hunley, Mission Rivers, retired, living in Tappahannock, serving in retirement 2 small churches, Shepherds and Mizpah, great little places of mission ministry, pay 100% of their apportionments, and they suffer through me. However, my contention here and my concern is that we have almost completely weakened our districts over the last 5 or 6 years. It used to be we would present a resolution at annual conference for a closed church, and the district would have say-so in what was going to happen with the assets from that church, that the resolution would return the assets, for example, to the then Roanoke District Board of Missions. Now, I'm happy to say we didn't close a single church on the Roanoke District when I was here. But I do believe that the concern I have, that the answer I want to know is, and this has gone on for 50 years since I've been coming to conference, is that there is this sense coming that it seems like that the conference center and the annual conference is the best arbiter of what to do with churches and with those funds. I don't necessarily think that's true, because in the past, the people in a community where we lost a church, or the people closest to it, would know what to do for the ministry and mission of a United Methodist presence in those places. So that's one. And number 2 is, I haven't heard anybody talk about United Methodist deserts in our conference since we've had disaffiliations. No one has explained to me, and I haven't been able to hear it, where is it that we have deserts and what are we doing? I know Appomattox held forth, and I'm so proud of Appomattox for doing what they did. But I think they're the 2 biggest concerns that I sense and feel out here, and I wanted to be sure that I expressed that on behalf of anybody else who may agree. But I do believe that I represent now small churches, and also remember a great strong district structure, which we now have weakened. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I think the districts still are the arbiters of what happens to the closed church property. They weigh in, and they have the missional input as to what that should be. And I can guarantee you that the cabinet and the connectional table, as we are reconfiguring it over the next year, we talk about deserts all the time. Amen, cabinet? How much time have we spent talking about that? So we just, and I really appreciate the comment about we have a unique opportunity here. So we're going to weigh things carefully and do this well. And part of that is we'll probably do it differently than it's been done in the past, seeing that we are having huge shifts in population in Virginia, that, the whole makeup of the annual conference is changing over time. And we want to be in a position where we can build new churches and have new ministries throughout the annual conference, and not have some districts incredibly wealthy and some with nothing. And so we're trying to establish a sense of parity, but we're also looking to the districts to tell us how best to use these closed church properties. I see a card right here, microphone 1 or 2. Why don't you come to 2? That's probably, you're equidistant.
Thank you, Bishop Sue. I had no intention of speaking before annual conference this year. Charles Townsend, retired elder, superannuated retired elder on the Shenandoah River District. I was surprised when I read the report that one of the charges that I had early in my ministry, all 4 churches have been closed under exigent circumstances. I know nothing of the details, but can I assume that they have looked at the possibility of making that 4-point charge into a 2-point charge so that it might be possible to have less than a full-time person covered? I know I was plenty busy covering 4 churches as full-time. I hate to see the wonderful people in these churches be without a church, United Methodist Church, somewhere that they can go to. So can I assume that among the avenues that have been explored, you're talking about consolidations?
Yes, I think that if anything else, our cabinet, they're all expert chess players, and they try to figure out every possible configuration. And I would guess that there weren't enough folks in all 4 of those churches together to form a viable charge. Victor can speak to that. No, oh, that was Doug, not Shannon. Okay. Yeah. Just show them we do think about these things, please.
So Reverend Townsend's question was about the churches of the McDowell charge, which are 4 churches that are between Stanton and Monterey, if you know your Virginia geography. Those 4 churches last summer, a year ago, declared themselves to be no longer United Methodist. They just made a decision. And they were closed under what are called exigent circumstances under paragraph 2549 of the United Methodist Book of Discipline, which allows in similar situations for the conference to close the properties, to close the churches immediately for the benefit of the denomination. And that was the case of what happened with those, as well as a couple of the other churches on my district this year as well. But what I can, to the bishop's point, the cabinet works extremely hard to find every way we can to keep churches in ministry. I have a multi-point charge on the Valley Ridge District where the churches are in Fairfield, Brownsburg, Stanton, and Lexington, which if you've ever driven that, it's a pretty good hike. But it was what we did in order to keep these important churches doing viable ministry. So we weave them together, we stitch them together the best we can, because we also want to preserve as many full-time appointments for our clergy as we can. So thank you.
And I would encourage you, if you have questions, for example, of charges you served or situations, by all means call the superintendents. You know, they're people, they talk to people, they take phone calls. But if you have questions, by all means ask. We're not trying to, you know, we want to be as reasonable and fair as we can, and we want you to know there's no reason you can't know the reasons behind these. So if you have particular situations that give you heartburn, that's a term I use a lot, what's given you heartburn, by all means call the superintendent or call my assistant. But we want you to know exactly what's going on. We just presume that for the most part, things rock along as they can, and you know, you're not that, you let it go, right? But if you have concerns or you see something that bothers you, by all means let us know. And that's one of those situations. Okay? Microphone 5.
I'm J.D. Hansen, the lay co-chair of the Conference Board of Church and Society. I worship in Arlington, Virginia. One of the things that we have a very active conference, Caretakers of God's Creation. There are communities where there is virtually no parkland in the poorest parts of the community. I don't know if any of these properties are in, you know, particular areas that lack places where local kids can get out and play. But I would urge that the committee look at the environmental and the ecological health needs of the community. Mm-hmm. And there might be some properties that would best be served providing a place for the community to serve. In Arlington, where I live, the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions has worked with churches, and the Mormon Church, not the one that you normally associate with doing ecological programs, provided half of the funding for making green the low-income housing in South Arlington.
Nice.
And I'll stop there, but there may be some parts of our Greening God's World Again that can be supported by these properties. And I'll just say that we add that to the things that we look at.
Thank you. Fantastic idea. Okay, microphone 2.
Good afternoon, Bishop, members of the annual conference. Reverend Joshua McCauley, serve on the Coastal Virginia District and the Wesley Foundation at Old Dominion University, asking for a moment of personal privilege.
Certainly.
I'm going to invite my colleagues who are sitting over in the corner there to stand up. It is with great joy to stand before you all, although you're behind me, as one of your campus ministers, and to speak about the incredible work being done through the campus ministries of our conference. Our campus ministries are vibrant, dynamic communities where students, faculty, and staff are growing in their faith, sharing their gifts, and transforming lives. From large universities to small colleges, these ministries are the hands and feet of Christ on campuses across our conference. Whether through Bible studies, service projects, worship services, or providing a safe and inclusive space for all students, your campus ministers are doing the holy work of making disciples and being present in the lives of those who are navigating the challenges and transitions of college life. This hard and holy work is being done to develop the leaders of the local church when they graduate. But to continue and to strengthen this work, we need your help. I ask you to share the names of your students from your churches and your community who are heading to our campuses this fall. We want to reach out. We want to connect. We want to be in relationship with them early on before their feet touch campus, so that they feel supported, welcomed, and encouraged as they start in the fall. Further, if you're an alum of these campuses, we want to invite you to share your story. We want to know your experiences. Your connection and involvement with these ministries can make a lasting impact on the next generation of students. You will find all the information needed to share with us over at our table, and I encourage you, because each of our districts have a campus ministry of one way or another, Ecumenical, Wesley Foundation, our United Methodist Schools. Connect with us. We want to be in relationship with you. Lastly, I'm so thankful for our local boards, the work of the Board of Higher Education, and all the support that we receive. Thank you for your ongoing support and partnerships in this vital work. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I want to add to what Josh said. I worked 3 years in residence life at Emory University, and our mantra was you get them the first 2 weeks or you don't get them at all. And so it is vitally important for you to get them their names before these students get to campus, because they need to issue the invitations and get them into our campus ministries the first 2 weeks of class, or they won't ever get them. That's just how college life works. So I am so grateful for the ministry they do, for their impact on young lives, and just it's an embarrassment of talent that we have in this annual conference in campus ministry. So thank you all. Okay, microphone 5, and then we'll go to microphone 13. And we're headed toward lunch, so remember that. Go ahead.
Timothy Barr, St. Luke's United Methodist Church, Mountain View District, young adult, disabled. I want to take a moment, Bishop, to encourage our churches and our laity to dig into their mission insight. We're talking about creative use of buildings after they close, and to me, that's just ridiculous. We need to talk about creative use of buildings while they're open.
Yeah,
I am proud
helpful.
to say
Yeah.
that St. Luke's has one of the only licensed child care centers in its building, because we reached out, and now that person who was very skeptical of being in organized religion is not only a member of St. Luke's, but now a certified lay minister. So reach out, look at your mission insight data, and for the love of God, there are so many things that are needed. For example, Danville is a child care desert, it's an affordable housing desert, and your communities have the same issues. Child care desert, for example, is across the whole state. So how can your buildings be used for the betterment of the entire community, not just to worship there on Sunday morning?
Thank you. Good word. Microphone 13.
Hello. Sean Morris, laity, representing the Wesley Foundation at Old Dominion, Coastal Virginia District. Firstly, thank you to Josh for speaking. He actually got me in his first 2 weeks.
Good job, Josh. All right.
And secondly, to piggyback off of the questions over churches and church deserts, in my experience in the United Methodist Church, we have areas of oversaturation of United Methodist churches. I live in Hampton, Virginia, and in Hampton, as far as I can remember, there are 8 United Methodist churches. Most of those churches report an average Sunday attendance of around 15 people, 15, 20, maybe 30 on Easter. But the question is, how can the Virginia Annual Conference improve the missional capabilities of these oversaturated regions where these churches are sort of spread thin while being overly dense at the same time?
And we'll let that hang in the air, because that's a huge issue. And the issue is often those 15 people don't want to change. Just saying, just saying. So thank you for raising a huge problem that we're going to have to work on together.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to move us toward lunch. I'm going to turn to our conference secretary for any announcements.
Thank you, Bishop. We have several announcements.
Okay.
First is there is a Toyota Corolla, Virginia license plate TRW5252, and the Roanoke Police have advised that this vehicle may be towed very soon. There are also some missing car keys, coincidentally, from a Toyota. Do not know whether that is the same Toyota. But the car keys, this is important, have a red tag that says remove before flight, and they are on a yellow carabiner. There is an air tag that indicates that those keys are someplace in the conference center. So please be on the lookout for Toyota keys with a red tag that says remove before flight, and if you find them, take them to the usher's desk. Will the retirees who are being recognized this afternoon please gather on the floor by box 8, which is to my left, at 4:45 p.m. Box 8 for the retirees at 4:45. And during this afternoon session, our tech desks will be located on the floor level. You'll notice there are many tech desks around the arena now, so that members may get needed technical assistance while we are voting, and just to have more access to help. And just a kind reminder, if you're registered for a lunch lab, they will be served in the same location, lunch will be served in the same location as your lab. So please go directly to that location, check in with the hospitality team before getting in the buffet line. And if you have signed up for Ears to the Ground, Hearts Open Community Listening is Love in Action, you'll be in Berglund Hall. If you've signed up for Click to Christ, Reimagining Ministry in the Digital Age, you will be in the Special Events Center where our displays are, and floaters will be available to answer questions. Finally, we've had a number of questions about the food truck vendors. They unfortunately are no longer able to be here with us. However, there are concession stands that are open throughout the arena, and one including in particular is by gate number 9. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will be in recess until 2 p.m. I invite you to be back here probably at 1:45, but we'd like to have everybody in place so we can start right at 2 with our memorial service, which I know you won't want to miss. This is always a highlight of annual conference every year as we remember those who have meant so much to us. So we stand in recess until 2 o'clock, but show back up at 1:45.